everybody. My name is Catherine, and I'm here today with Shayna.
Hi.
We're both part of the seller development team at Etsy, and we focus on ways to help Etsy sellers succeed at their businesses. I've worked in online community building for almost 5 years, and as Etsy's seller education manager, I'm always collecting best practices for creative entrepreneurs.
And I'm Shayna, and I have about 7 years entrepreneurial experience, and I've been working at Etsy for 2 years, and I still run my Etsy shop on the side.
So this is a presentation on, of course, starting your creative business with Etsy. If you have questions, don't hesitate to ask in the chat room. Shayna, I'm sure, will take great care of you. We'll also save the last part of our hour together for some Q&A. I'll ask you questions occasionally. Sometimes I'll provide pauses for you to stop and write down your ideas. Other times, I'll leave the questions in the slides so you can return to the presentation later to think about your answers. Do keep a pen and paper handy or a doc open on your computer so you can record your thoughts. But don't worry about taking notes. I'll send a follow-up with these slides and additional resources for you later. Okay, this presentation is broken into 4 parts: an introduction to Etsy, basic business planning, best practices for opening your shop, and then how to keep growing once you've taken off. By the end, you'll walk away with inspiration and knowledge to start your own Etsy shop, basic business strategy for selling online, effective tips for making the most of Etsy's tools and marketplace, and resources to help you along the way. Let me fill you in on a little bit about Etsy first. The team at Etsy is on a mission to reimagine commerce in ways that build a more fulfilling and lasting world. We like to say at Etsy that this is the marketplace we make together. Artisans, entrepreneurs, and change makers connect with customers who want to buy from real people owning their own businesses. There are currently over 25 million members on Etsy. Etsy can help you expand your product reach online by giving you access to this large customer community around the world. There are over 42 million visitors to Etsy every month. In 2012, there were over $895 million in gross merchandise sales, meaning goods that were sold through the site. And Etsy sellers earn over 93% of this. Etsy's not just a booming marketplace either. It's a way to connect with over 850,000 plus growing businesses like yours, so you can learn from each other and work on strategies for success. Okay, before we get into how Etsy works, let's cover some important basics for running your creative business. This will be a pretty thorough look at beginning business planning, and after that, we'll get into the fun of opening your own shop, my favorite part. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm going to assume that you already have something you'd like to sell, and that you want to treat this like a part-time or a full-time business versus a hobby. Okay, this is a notebook I bound by hand. Let's say I have a small collection going and I'm ready to sell them. Before I do anything, I need to establish my primary goal. I might just say, sell my notebooks, but it's important to get concrete with this. So instead of just sell my notebooks, how about I want to make $50 in profit from my Etsy shop in my first 3 months? I came to this objective by using a super handy checklist of sorts called SMART criteria. After this presentation, you can revisit the criteria I'm about to share when forming your own goals. So how is my goal SMART here? First off, it's specific. I don't want to just sell booklets. I want to make a profit, and I want to do it on Etsy. It's measurable. I thought about the how, the who, the when, and the where. Notice that I'm actually specifically measuring profit and not just revenue. I think this goal is achievable. I think I have enough time, space, and materials to hit this in 3 months. It's also relevant, meaning that it's results-based. In other words, how will I know when I've hit my goal? In this case, I'll have $50 in my pocket. And finally, it's time-bound. When do you actually expect to achieve your goal? I often like to set goals quarterly so I can iterate on my plan as I go. Once you have your SMART goal, there are a few keys that will help you hit it. Finding your ideal customer will help drive all your other decision-making and will also help keep you focused. People often say, I want to sell to everyone, but you have a much greater chance of success if you make your product very enticing for a certain type of person rather than vaguely interesting for a range of people. This is also called identifying your target market. Try to thoroughly visualize the ideal customer for your product. We're going to pause now for 2 minutes so you can write a thorough description of your ideal customer. Ask yourself these questions to get going. Start off with questions like, where does this customer live? And where do they shop? I'll let you write out your ideas while I go through some of these other questions. Try to think about what their income level is. You can actually research this later on with some census data. Is this person single or are they in a family? These next 2 questions are really important. What does your ideal customer want versus what do they need? And finally, do they want low price and convenience or quality and service? I'm going to move ahead now, but definitely come back to these questions as you're building your business plan. If you think of your target buyer as your audience, you can plan out how you would tell the story of your product to them. When people visit your shop and get a feel for your story, what is the one main theme you want them to walk away with? A great way to tell an engaging story is to create meaningful differences between your product and other sellers. This is called marketplace differentiation, and we can break the idea down into some pretty easy to understand parts. First off, understand your ideal customer. No surprise there, and you should be good to go here. Next up, do your research. Who else is serving your customer? Who makes or sells the same things as you? In the example of my notebook that I showed you, I would look at other similar items on Etsy and in small brick and mortar shops to look at the other options out there. Also, look around to see if there are other products that might satisfy your customer's needs. In this case, I would think about how my ideal customer would use my notebook. If I realize that this person would primarily want a travel journal, and I don't see many hand-bound, screen-printed travel journals out there, I could tweak my notebook a bit to meet their needs. For example, I might add a pouch for passports or create a template for recording your days on the road. And now it's time to look inward. What are you really good at? What are you not so hot at? These types of questions are actually really important because they provide clues about how you can focus your efforts and stand out from the crowd. If I were a perfectionist with incredibly high quality standards, I'd most likely develop notebooks with noticeable details that could set me apart. On the other hand, if I love custom work, I would focus my efforts on creating a range of optimizable journals. And make your product unique. Just like no one else can be exactly who you are, make your product the same. And this is at the heart of marketplace differentiation. There's almost no limit to the ways you can differentiate your shop, but some common strategies you might consider are product quality. So I could make my notebook with specialty, high-quality paper. Or you could think about service. I could really personalize the buying experience for my customers. But maybe I'll stick with an innovative approach by creating a fun new way to bind my booklet that other people haven't tried. Or I could try staying niche with only doing artwork featuring grumpy cats. You can also differentiate your shop based on your personal story, specialized technology, or the way you even make your customer feel, like healthy or successful or confident. The sky's the limit, but keep in mind that people might only remember 1 or 2 things about your shop, so choose wisely. Finally, once you get to know your unique story backwards and forwards, check every decision you make against it. Make it come through in every aspect of your product and even how you present them. Etsy provides many ways for you to do just that, which we'll get into next. You've now taken the first essential steps to thinking through who you want to be as a business. This is a pretty big topic, so I'll follow up with more resources on things like profits and financing so you can bring your business plan to life. And now it's time to get going with your shop. We'll cover some common questions, talk about branding, go over best practices for listing your items and taking stellar photos, including some best practices and insider tips from us, and then we'll dissect what happens when someone buys your item. Okay, why open an Etsy shop? Because you're awesome, of course, and maybe you want to earn extra money or stay motivated to develop your product. Maybe you just want to reach a larger audience. And almost anyone can benefit from feedback and stats in your Etsy shop to determine what people respond to. As far as what you'll need, it's free to create your account and set up your shop, and only costs 20 cents to list an item. So you can have a fully stocked Etsy shop with just a few dollars. You'll also need an email address, password, and username. You can use PayPal or Etsy to process payments from your customers. And you'll need a credit card for billing purposes, like the 20 cents to list your item that I mentioned, and other small processing fees that we'll cover later. Before you begin listing your items, you probably want to think first if Etsy is even a good fit for your business and product. During the process of listing an item, you will answer questions about each that will help you define what it is, and it should fit into one of these three categories. Handmade, and that's handmade by you or you and your collective. Examples of a collective on Etsy can include combining skills with a fellow artist while creating your work together, teaming up with another artist to list your separate items in the same shop, or even getting help from family members in your household to manage your shop with you. And again, I'll send around more information on this topic too. You can also sell craft supplies. These include both commercially made and handmade supplies. And finally, vintage, which includes items that are 20 years old or older. Okay, I know you're itching to get going, but there's something I love to tell anyone who's thinking about opening an Etsy shop. Shop around on Etsy. It will help you understand the community, and it will also help you understand how people discover items to buy on Etsy. And also, if you wind up buying something, it will help you get familiar with the process your buyer will go through when they purchase your item. It really does answer a lot of questions. So you know what you're going to sell, and you're familiar with Etsy. Time to talk about branding. Here's Etsy seller Janelle's take on telling your story to help your product stand out from the crowd.
Hi, I'm Janelle from Prunella Soap, and I'm going to share my tips for creating a strong brand. Having a shop with a clear brand message is the key to getting noticed and remembered. Soap is kind of a boring product to display, and I knew I had to do something fun and unique in order to catch people's attention. What do you think the core values of your brand are, and how do they inform your story? When I started Prunella Soap, I was thinking a lot about lost arts, like baking from scratch, weaving, and quilting. I wanted to rewind back to the days of using all natural ingredients to make soap. My brand values are all natural, simple, vegan, and eco-friendly. Once you know what your brand is, you can dig into the details that make it count. You can see that everything in my shop works together to form a cohesive, unified idea. Emphasizing the square shape, the natural color palette, and the herbal scents are all choices I've carefully made. A cohesive brand has a distinctive style that carries through to everything that's visible to the world, from your products to your packaging to your online presence. Be specific. You don't have to appeal to everyone. When you put a lot of energy into the presentation of your shop, buyers will notice. I looked at product lines from all over the world to gather inspiration for Prunella's look. My brand style is minimalist, playful, and good, clean fun. A great name supports your brand and lets fans know who you are. Here's how I picked my shop name. When I was a little girl, I loved bath time. My mom started calling me Princess Prunella. Prunella was a name that I always had in the back of my mind, and when I landed on soap making, it was the perfect fit. You might choose a name that evokes a visual image or one that has meaning for you, or that cleverly ties back to your brand values. Think about how you will present your wares to the world. Packaging and other materials should mirror the look of your brand. I live in Portland, so I really like the idea of using an umbrella as my logo. This ties into the water theme that comes to mind when thinking about soap. Look at websites like thedyeline.com to get ideas for fonts, materials, and color schemes that you like. If graphic design isn't your strong suit, don't worry. You can buy or even trade design services with other Etsy sellers. I designed my shop banner, avatar, and labels myself, but I recently asked two Etsy sellers, Heather Kent and The Little Canoe, to do custom illustrations for my labels. Every Etsy seller understands the importance of photography. Beautiful images will make your product stand out in a crowded marketplace. I chose a playful photography style to add a twist to the simple aesthetic of my product. You can get even more tips by watching Etsy's Product Photography for Beginners video. Lastly, never forget the amazing powers of social media. A Twitter account, a Facebook page, a blog, or website are indispensable tools for small businesses. This drives press and publicity to fans of your product. Put your brand out there and you'll get all kinds of responses. So now you have plenty of ideas to think about. It's time to get out there, let your creativity shine, and let your brand do the talking.
So that video really covers basically everything I'm about to talk about in this next section. And I want to really go over some of those points in finer detail here, because this is a lot of those kind of insider tips that we can provide for you right now. So your Etsy shop has a storefront, much like a real brick and mortar shop. Let's peek around the Imagination Kids Etsy storefront. While we take a little tour, think about how you can tell your story when you set up the look, feel, and copy for your shop. Your banner is how your buyers see your brand, first and foremost. You can really have fun with this, get creative, try your hand at a couple different versions. Do include your business name, and like I said, have fun. And as Prunella mentioned in the video, you can actually hire a pro to do this if you're not super comfortable with this part. You can actually search Etsy and purchase a custom banner made just for you. Your avatar is on every page of your shop, so choose something that reflects how you want buyers to see you. Imagination Kids has used a signature item from their shop as part of their brand. It's echoed in their banner and their avatar. The whole "We Do Kids Stuff" theme is really echoed throughout this entire shop. Every shop also has its own shop name, of course, which doubles as your unique URL. This is where you can direct your friends, family, and shoppers to find your work on Etsy. So choose an easy to spell and remember shop name. Another great place to tell your story is in your About page. Describe you, your shop, what it means to you. Talk about what makes you the best at what you do, whether that's experience or training or enthusiasm. And it also helps to make it look good. Visuals are always a phenomenal way to tell stories, like how you make your items, how they're typically used, and what you're like when you're working. Remember, you're awesome, so show it. Okay, this is where the real fun begins. Let's talk about listing an item. Here's an example of an item listed in an Etsy shop called Barnacle Bags. They make these awesome handcrafted durable totes and backpacks. There are three main components to the copy on every listing page on Etsy: title, description, and one last thing, which the buyer doesn't usually see, but is just as important: tags. Your title, description, and tags will help buyers find your item in Etsy's search. The best way to lead people to your shop is to use words a shopper would to search for your items. So now I want you to get one of your own items that you'd like to sell in mind. We're going to take a minute here for you to write out some ideas. Brainstorm a list of keywords a shopper would use to find your item as you answer these questions. Like, what is it? And when you ask this question, like, what is it? How would you tell a friend in just maybe 3 or 4 words what your item is. Think about who your item's for. And actually, this ties in really closely with that whole ideal customer conversation we had earlier. What is your item made out of? Like the material, what's the color like? Where and how will this be used? Is it functional? Is it decorative? How about the style? Is there a motif in your item? Is there an imagery that sticks out? What technique did you use? Was there a special technology that you used to make the item? I'm going to give you guys just 10 more seconds to think about these. So you should now have a big list of words that someone might use to find your item. Of course, you can always build on this as you go, and you should definitely revisit this down the line. Another great trick to thinking about words your customer might use is to shop for your own item. Try to find this on Etsy. Try to find your item on Etsy search. As you type, Etsy will auto-suggest related words that people search for the most. This is like, it's kind of like a sneak peek into the mind of your shopper. So you see here that bag also pops up with common searches like messenger bag or tote bag. And let's revisit my notebook now. I'm actually going to ask Shayna a question. Sorry to maybe put you on the spot a little bit, like we haven't rehearsed this. But what are some keywords that you might use when you're searching for a booklet like mine on Etsy? It's like this.
So for me, I would definitely look for blank book, maybe blue blank book. I really want something original, so I might look up screen printed booklet. I really want a sketchbook, so I might search, specifically for sketchbook, stuff like that.
Yeah, those are pretty much the words I was coming up with too. I also thought about things like recycled paper because that's what this is made out of. It's also, I thought about the stitching that was here. It's called pamphlet stitching. And I think we covered a lot of those. So when we're done brainstorming a bunch of different options, we might get a list that looks like this. So you'll see a lot of those words that Shayna and I were just discussing. This is where you can just really kind of brain dump any word that you might think of to really look for your item on Etsy. I've tried to narrow these down to the 13 most important words. Notice that I've actually nixed some of the words I think a buyer is less likely to use when they search for something like my notebook. So yes, my notebook does have red thread in it, but do I really think that someone's going to actually search red threaded notebook or something like that? Probably not. So I've also opted for several compound keywords. Compound keyword is something like cobalt blue instead of blue. The reason to think about this is that someone only has to include the word blue in their search to potentially draw my item. And if someone specifically wants cobalt blue, then I'm in especially good shape. So basically I have a couple bases covered by using cobalt blue instead of just blue. Lastly, I've prioritized the most important keywords like notebook, handbound, and screen printed. I'd say these are important because I just think this is what people would really be searching for on Etsy when they would eventually find my book. And again, try and find your own item in Etsy search, and it'll give you some really good ideas about how people tend to look for that kind of item. We've spent a lot of time talking about these keywords because they really play into this next section. Titles and descriptions. This is where you can really have fun and experiment with what works for you and your shop. Your title should place your most important words first. This is, definitely a good little trick that we can share with you today. And then include additional details afterwards. For barnacle bags, they didn't list their work as a bag or even a striped backpack. They titled it, let me take a breath, Waxed Canvas Snap Rucksack, Backpack, Roll Top, Sage and Gray Stripes, Limited Edition. And you'll notice that they've actually included little dashes between the main ideas here. It's a really fantastic descriptive title for their item, and it really helps their item show up in search. The same concept goes for your description. They should reflect your passion for your work. Your description should give people your best pitch. Again, it's all about telling your story, why you designed it, how you made it, what it means. And you can then attach tags, categories, and materials to your item when you fill in the details to list it. So buyers don't really see these tags on the listing page, but they will act as essential descriptive keywords in the background that the Etsy search engine uses, among other things, to provide search results to shoppers on Etsy. That's why we've been spending all this time talking about keywords and describing your item. Again, place your most important keywords first. Here's where those compound tags we touched on can be especially helpful, like messenger bag or cobalt blue or organic cotton. Search likes to find exact matches when people are looking for something specific. Finally, it's important to use all 13 tags available to you and to play around with what works as you grow, of course. And that's why we prioritize that big brain dump of keywords down to 13. Okay, it's time to talk about photos. Photos are incredibly important for selling online. No matter how good your titles and tags are, if your photos aren't alluring, you're really stepping on your own toes. The buyer can't see the items in person. Your photos are how they'll actually touch and explore them. You can upload 5 photos, and so that's 5 chances to tell that story of your product. Natural light is appealing and usually clear. Don't distract from your item. Only include other objects in the photo if they help convey more about your brand, like the dogs and the plants in Prunella soap, or how your product is used, like the person wearing the backpack in Barnacle Bag's photo, or how big or small the item is to convey size. Don't forget to help your buyers touch your object through your photos. So really try and convey the material, what it kind of feels like, how it sort of sits on a person if it's an article of clothing, and use the crop tool in Etsy to show off the best part of your photos. Finally, it's helpful to get or borrow a nice camera. If that's tricky for you, modern camera phones are increasingly good in a pinch. I've really listed out these top photography tips because we can't stress enough how important photography is. And in fact, Prunella mentioned a fantastic video, kind of like a how-to, on photography that Etsy has, and we'll send that along to you as well. Etsy seller For the Tiny gave us a really fun before and after example from her own shop. Looking at this item, I'm not quite sure what it is, how big it is, or how it's used. I might personally guess that it's a slipper or a hat. In this improved photo, I can see exactly what this is, and I have a pretty clear idea of what it feels like, how big it is, and how it works. It's also really cute, and that's a pretty good tactic to try too. If you want more inspiration, almost all the images you see in this presentation I put together were taken by Etsy sellers to show off their own items. Now I want to go over business tools that Etsy provides, as well as a breakdown of what you take home from every sale. You keep over 93% of anything you sell. Let's look at how this works. Okay, you're selling a bag that's $100. Remember, it's free to set up your shop and it costs 20 cents to list an item. That listing stays active until it sells or until it expires after 4 months. There's a 3.5% transaction fee once it sells. And depending on which payment processing method is used, there's a final small fee of roughly 25 cents plus 3%. That's a total of $93 out of a $100 sale after fees are taken out. And of course, sellers factor in the cost of these fees when they're pricing their items. The fees we just looked at fall into 2 categories: listing fees and payment processing fees. Listing fees include 20 cents to list your item. And the other insider tip for you, it's great to stock your shop as soon as you can when you open. Stocking your shop means listing about 20 items for sale in your shop. So for just a few dollars, you can be ready for business. And once your item sells, there's that 3.5% transaction fee. You choose the payment methods you wish to accept, which can include PayPal, money orders, personal checks, or credit card payments made directly through Etsy. That's called Etsy's direct checkout. Just research your options and pick the one that's right for you, or the ones that are right for you, I should say. Many people use Etsy's direct checkout as well as PayPal, and they have really similar fees. And another benefit to using direct checkout or PayPal is that it will automatically open up your shop to accept gift cards, which is a great way to drum up more business. One last money-related question that invariably comes up from sellers involves taxes. I'll guide you through a quick step-by-step to get you thinking about sales tax, which I know maybe isn't the most fun thing, but it'll be really quick, I promise. And of course, find a tax specialist if you have questions or concerns about this. I might be full of some Etsy wisdom, but I'm definitely not a tax specialist. Okay, so here's a question for you. Where were you sitting the last time you worked on your items? This is most likely, this is what most likely is called, for tax purposes, your nexus. I wish this word were as fancy or as fun as it sounds, but all it really means is identifying the physical location out of which you work. Most people only have one nexus. Once you determine where you have your nexus, look up the sales tax requirements for that state. I'll share a tool for doing that in the follow-up. It's easy, I promise. You only need to add your sales tax rate to your shop once as you get set up. Etsy will automatically add that to future items in your shop. And we also get lots of questions about who winds up paying sales tax. So think about it this way. Sales tax is based on the location an item ships to. So if you're a seller in the state of California and you set a tax rate for California, a New York state buyer won't get charged tax. Once you're all set up, don't forget to keep track of your taxes. You can do this with easy-to-use free applications. My follow-up resource will include an option for you. We've covered taxes. Told you that was pretty painless. So it's time to ship your item. Here are some top shipping tips for you to consider for your own shop. Free shipping is an awesome way to incentivize people to buy. Just remember to factor the cost of shipping into the price of your item if you want to do that. Ship internationally because Etsy is a global marketplace in 200 countries. You don't want to miss out on all those potential buyers. All that branding we talked about earlier should be evident in the way you pack your items. So think about the way that you're going to wrap the item or cushion it so it doesn't break, or include a little card or a coupon for someone in the box. All these details add up to the final interaction you'll have with your customer, so really make it memorable. Finally, if you're using Etsy's direct checkout, you can pay for and print out shipping labels directly through Etsy, keeping your costs in one spot. You now have your business basics, and you've opened your Etsy shop. Now it's time to think about how you'll continue to grow. In this last part of the presentation, we'll go over marketing and promoting yourself, as well as how you can tap into community and educational resources on Etsy. There's a very simple and human approach to marketing that can help keep it fun for you as a seller. Good customer service is easy. Just treat your customers like you'd like to be treated if you were the buyer. Ship your items quickly and communicate well. If you can inject your personality while you do that and go above and beyond, then you're providing great customer service, and people always remember that. We'll dive a little deeper into the rest of the items on this list now. Be social, so social media. It's tempting to stay within the garden of Etsy, but you can improve your business by heading into the wilds of the internet. And you know what I'm talking about, of course. That's Facebook pages, Pinterest, Twitter, blogs, Instagram. Many people like to kind of pick one channel of communication that works well for them and especially develop that one. And you're not a robot, so don't use social media to just promote your listings. Again, try and have fun with it. If it's not interesting, people have no real motivation to keep interacting with you. And the key word there is interact. Give shout outs to your buyers, show your products out in the world, and promote other sellers. Oh, and here's one of the most important things I can share with you today. Don't think about getting every person to see your shop. It's about getting the right people to see your shop. Search engine optimization, or SEO, is how you can accomplish this. Optimize your shop so people can find you when they search. And you can do that by continually experimenting with those keywords, titles, tags, and descriptions we discussed earlier. Etsy's search engine will look at all of those when they're surfacing results for when people are searching for things. Etsy provides sellers with robust tools to look at traffic to your shop. This includes getting right down to which keywords people are using when they land on your items, meaning you can literally see what the right words were that led people to your shop. And you can use that information to hone your SEO over time. So if you see a keyword that keeps coming up and you didn't think about that before, that's a great keyword to add to your tags and your title or description. You can also skip to the front of the line. Sellers can pay for featured spots at the top of relevant search results on Etsy. You pick the listings you want to promote and the keywords associated with them. You tell us how much to spend, and we don't go over that amount. Search ads are easy to set up, play around with, and turn off if you want. And you can then use those same shop tools to see how your keywords perform in those ads. And just like SEO, the best results come from playing around with what works. Coupons are a straightforward way to drum up repeat business. I mean, who doesn't love a sale? And Etsy provides tools to help you share those with customers seamlessly. And of course, stay in touch with customers and on top of your orders with the Etsy app for iPhone or Android. There are practically endless resources for sellers on Etsy, and I really want to take the time to share these with you. You know, after we're done with the presentation, you can turn to all these for tons more information. Our community hub on Etsy is your portal to networking and connecting with other artists, makers, and curators in your area or online. Some features at etsy.com/community include online labs, which are live classes just like this one to help you grow your small business, event listings, where you'll find workshops and craft nights, forums, an area on the site for members to network with one another, connect, ask each other questions, bounce ideas off of one another, and teams, which are self-organized groups of sellers who gather around location, craft, or common interest. Join an Etsy team to learn from experienced sellers or hone your craft, make professional connections, or just find kindred spirits and chit-chat. Search for the right fit for you at etsy.com/teams. Etsy.com/help can give you the insider info on just about anything you need, including FAQ articles and best practices. And probably one of your greatest resources of all is the Seller Handbook. The Seller Handbook puts our best of educational content at your fingertips, including more in-depth information on basically everything we've covered here. And that is selling on Etsy in a nutshell. To get going with your own Etsy shop, you can just visit etsy.com/sell. On that same page, you'll also get more information and tips to get to your first sale. And you can also sign up for our Etsy Success newsletter, which our team puts together, a bi-weekly email to help you move your business forward. I think it's time for some questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
You guys have been quiet in the chat, but
Quiet.
really pleasant. There were a lot of questions about direct checkout. Right now, direct checkout is available to all US sellers, and we're hoping to expand that later this year. A couple of you also had questions about shipping. There's a ton of FAQs about shipping and how shipping works. If you make sure that you think about shipping outside of the retail cost, so the buyer will pay for the shipping cost. And make sure that when you're setting that price, think about the actual cost of the shipping, how much it costs to buy the box that you're sending, any tissue paper, stickers, special stuff that you're also kind of packaging it all up with.
Yeah, and the cost of your time too, because shipping, that definitely involves you physically doing something and taking it to the to actually send it out, depending on where you are. Any other questions? Well, also,
there's a couple of questions about registering as a business. I think it's a really smart idea to go ahead and register locally for a DBA and anything that you need to be like really legit. You want this to be a legit business, so take those steps. And I really recommend joining an Etsy team. There are local Etsy teams, so if you go to etsy.com/teams, you can search your city, state, country, and meet with sellers in person or just on their forums there on Etsy, and ask a lot of those questions about where do I go to get my DBA? How do I file for taxes? Do I need to set this up? How do you do this? How do you decide on your shipping costs? All that kind of stuff. And they are really a wealth of knowledge, and luckily our community is awesome at sharing information.
Yeah, and speaking of sharing information, of course, like I've said, probably about 5 times already, but we will be sending out more information, including really awesome articles that live in our seller handbook about things like we've been, asking about here. So, pricing your item, taxes and shipping, all that good stuff.
Here's another question. How do you decide to sell on your own website or on Etsy? And I think that you can do both.
Oh yeah.
Definitely both. For me, I was selling on my own website and I wasn't getting the traffic that I desired, so I started selling on Etsy as well. And it ended up going so well that I sold mainly on Etsy and actually had my Etsy shop run on my website as well. So I would definitely cover all your bases, see what works for you, see how Etsy is working for you. Just try it out.
Yep. That was such a good answer. I have nothing to add to that.
What other questions do you guys have?
Oh, and actually, similarly to the question of, do you sell on Etsy or your personal site? That actually ties in well to the fact that you should have a presence, if you can, on a number of different channels. So that might be your own website, but it could also be a Facebook page, a Twitter feed, get involved on Pinterest. It'll help you establish your brand. It'll also help you, of course, get the word out, but it will help you potentially find press down the line too. So as you grow as a business, it's great to really have that solid online presence.
There was a question related to digital items. I think someone is a graphic designer and they design labels. We do have this great new thing for digital items, and you can actually upload a digital item ahead of time, so you can kind of do an instant sale. So say if you do a PDF of a pattern or an image PDF or something like that, and you want to be able to sell it instantly, sellers will be able to just click and download after they pay right away. So it's super easy.
I recently bought a cross-stitch pattern for Tom Waits, a kind of profile of Tom Waits, and with the new digital feature that Shayna was talking about, I could actually get that pattern the second that I pay for the item, and the seller wouldn't have to do anything else.
Instant satisfaction. There's another question about Etsy's presence in India. We have a lot of teams in India, so you can definitely meet some sellers there. You just search on etsy.com/teams.
Yeah. I mentioned this in the presentation, but really one of the best ways you can get familiar with the community and how things work is actually to shop around, poke around. You can actually convo, we call it convo, but you can send a little email essentially through Etsy to other sellers that you might admire or like, and feel free to shoot them some questions too.
We also have a question: how does Etsy decide who is the seller of the month? So we actually don't have a seller of the month. We do have a featured seller who's featured on the front page, and this actually rotates every couple of days. And we have a merch team, and just like the folks at Etsy find awesome shops and choose to feature them. So there's a couple of ways that you can really work on getting featured on the site, and that's just working on your photography, working on those listings. Follow up with the seller handbook and get lots of tips for improving your shop, and that's just how it's done.
Yep. What else we got?
What else do we have? Yes, there's an Etsy Barcelona team.
I think we're getting into the particulars now, I think.
Yes.
I love that this is an international audience.
Definitely.
Actually, on that note, in my follow-up, I'll most likely be sending around a survey that would be incredibly helpful for all of you to fill out. It would take literally about 20 seconds. It'll help improve this presentation and give us a sense for how we can continue to help potential Etsy sellers in the future.
Yeah, I think that really wraps up a lot of the questions.
Great. So look out for my follow-up, most likely tomorrow, and we really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you guys so much.